with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. I'm going to tell you about my friend Matt Hunter today. I've talked about him here and there throughout the podcast. He was the guy who tackled the cunts off me when I got bottled that time after punching Foxy. So this is my first memory of Matt Hunter. Like, I knew him around a bit. He was a year younger than me, and he was dating a friend of mine's sister, who I'm still good friends with all these people. I was mates with his cousin and shit like this. So I knew him around a bit, but he was a year younger and I wasn't really hanging out with him. But he was a Dramana boy. The Hunters are Dramana boys. So we're in Dramana and we're up at the back paddocks, and me and Shawnee are there watching all the guys on their dirt bikes. There was some jumps and shit like that. Me and Shawnee were not the fucking dirt bikers, but there was plenty of fucking dirt bikers around. So we're watching them. Hunter's there on his fucking dirt bike jumping shit. Carcass is there. Cos is there. All the dodgy cunts are there. Me and Sean are just up there having a few drinks watching these cunts. Then we all decide we're leaving. I'm probably 16 at the time. Hunter's probably 15. So Hunter rides over to me and he's like, do you want to lift back down? And I'd never really spoken to him at this point. Like, we'd nodded our heads at each other and shit like that. But we weren't like friends or anything. So I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's cool. And I had never been on the back of a fucking motorbike before. I'd never been on the back of anything before. So I tell him that. I'm like, I'm not too sure. Where do I put my feet? He's like, just jump on. And I was a little bit nervous too. I wanted to say no, but I also didn't want to look like a pussy. So he goes, just jump on, you'll be fine. So I jump on the back of the bike with him. As soon as my ass touches the seat, he full fucking throttles a mono. I'm holding onto him for dear life. He is laughing his fucking head off. He's trying to throw me off the back. He's monoing. He's fucking doing all sorts of shit. He's swinging around corners. I am barely holding on. He is just laughing his head off. I'm screaming at him to fucking stop. Like, I'm going to fall off, man. I'm going to fall off. I'm going to fall off. Stop. Stop. And he's just laughing, thinking it's the funniest fucking thing in the entire world, which it probably was to him, but it was not to me. So I'm like yelling at him to stop. I'm like screaming because I'm barely holding on. And he slows down and he stops and he's like, just relax, just relax. I won't do it again. Just chill. I'll take you back home now. I'm like, nah. He's like, just relax. I'll fucking take you down. And I'm like, all right. And as soon as I said, all right, he pops another fucking mono, full throttle. I almost come off. I'm really hanging on for dear life. And he's just laughing his fucking head off with his Hunter laugh. But that's the type of cunt he was. If you asked him to do something, he would just do the opposite. Like, one day I was sitting at home. One day I was sitting at home watching TV, and I just hear this fucking motorbike engine just going, wow, wow. And then I hear it coming closer, and then I hear it going down my driveway. And then I hear it in my backyard just fucking revving right out. So I'm looking out the window, and it's Matt Hunter doing fucking donuts on his dirt bike in my backyard. I'm yelling at him. He's tearing up my fucking backyard. As soon as he sees me, he just laughs his head off and rides off. Later that day, I see him. I'm like, Matt, that was fucked what you do. That's not my house. It's a fucking rental. You're chopping up the backyard. Mum went off at me. The neighbors are going psycho. Can you just never do that again, man? And he's like, fuck, man, sorry. Like, I'm really sorry. I didn't know it was going to fuck you up so bad. I'm like, thanks, man. Thanks for understanding. Very next day, I'm on the couch again watching TV, and I hear the motorbike engine. Wow, 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 wow. I'm like, no fucking way. No way. And then I fucking hear it go down my driveway into the backyard again. There he is, fucking Matt Hunter, cutting donuts in my fucking backyard again. You gotta fucking love the cunt, but you had to learn not to react to the shit he was doing, because that would encourage him. If he was annoying you, that's when he was laughing the hardest. Like, one night after the pub, we're out in the Sandy Hotel or some shit like that in Melbourne. We're stumbling down the road back to the car, and me and him are just walking side by side, and he sees a possum. He picks the fucking possum up by the tail and starts chasing me with this fucking psycho possum. He's laughing his head off. I'm screaming, man, they're scratched. They've got big claws, man. Stop it, Hunter. And then he just threw the possum at me. So you had to be on your fucking toes with Hunter. But over the next few years, I'm not too sure how or why, but me and him became really close. Like, Hunter was one of those guys that every single person that he hung out with thought he was their best friend. And like everyone else, I fucking loved him. I fucking loved him. And he was actually an emotional type of dude. He felt things. He was a tender fucking guy. He didn't mind having to cry every now and then. He was actually quite in touch with his feminine side. He was quite an emotional dude. He was far more in touch with his emotions than just about everyone else in Dramana. So for about a year there, me, Matt Hunter, Gav, Shawnee, Sammy the motherfucking T, Ashcroft, Sconnor, a few others, but variations of that crew would go out every single Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. At the start, we were all underage except for Gav and Ashcroft, but we all had dodgy IDs. Matt had one, I had one. So we were getting in everywhere. This is still in high school. Matt wasn't at school. He was still a plumber. So we would be going out most nights of the week. Tuesday was edgy. Wednesday was Wild Bills. The Sandy was in there somewhere. Thursday would go to this place in Rye where all our teachers from school would go. So we'd party with the teachers. Then the next day, go see them at school. But this lasted for a long time. This was over a year. I'd finished high school and I wasn't doing anything. I was just going out every single night. That's what we're all doing, just going out every single night. Hunter would be calling me 2, 3, 4 times a day. It was a fucking sweet crew and we were in a sweet groove. We were doing nothing but drinking. I think I was working at the reject shop at that point. How apt. So it ends up being 8 or 9 months after I'd finished high school and all I'd done was fucking drink. I'd done nothing. I was also with my girlfriend from high school who I'd been trying to break up with for the previous 3 years, but just out of laziness and lack of willpower, I was never fully able to cut it off. So I was in this rut. I could see myself, I could see that I could continue doing this for the next 3 or 4 years and enjoy myself. But I did not want to get stuck in Dramana. I could see how you could because all your friends are there. You don't really need to go anywhere. There's community. But I just did not want to get fucking stuck in a small town. So I'm going on holiday. I'm going to fucking Sydney to see my old man. I said I was going for a month, but I packed everything. I had no intention of coming back, really. I just didn't want to have to explain myself to everyone. So I went up to Sydney. And 1 month turns into 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. When you move away from a place, the first couple of weeks or a month you're gone, you'll be speaking to everyone. You'll still get phone calls from fucking everyone. Second month, a few people drop off. Third month, a few more drop off. By the time you're gone for 6 months, you're lucky to have one person still calling you. And the person that was still calling me every single day, maybe twice a day, was Matt Hunter. Shawnee was also calling here and there, but Matt Hunter religiously called twice a day. He was calling to have a chat, see what I'm up to, try and get me back. But this just made me love him anymore. By the time I was leaving Melbourne, he was the guy that I was going to miss the most. So after about 8 or 9 months in Sydney, I've never talked about those 8 or 9 months. They were fucked. No friends, just hanging out with backpackers, doing door-to-door sales. It was a fucking nightmare. But after about 8 or 9 months, I was like, fuck it, I want to go back and see my mates. So I told a couple of people I'm coming, and I told them not to tell fucking Matt Hunter, and I told them not to tell Shawnee. So I fly down to Melbourne. I think Sconnor picks me up. We drive down to Mornington to go straight out to the bay or some shit like that. The first person I see is Shawnee, and Shawnee sort of gives me a handshake and is like, what's up? I'm like, is that it? But he was doing his own thing. Anyway, the next person I saw was fucking Matty Hunter, and Matty Hunter almost burst into tears. He crash tackled me. He was over the fucking moon, and I was over the moon to see him. And that night we just drank. I can't even remember what fucking happened. But the next day we ended up back at Matt Hunter's parents' house where he was living at the time. He was still 18. So I can't even remember who was there at the time, but Matt Hunter was there and we're all drinking, and I've been drinking all night and I'm just plowing into this fucking booze there. I start doing shots. I start sculling Jim Beam. I was getting in all sorts of trouble. This is 11 a.m., I'd have to say. Between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Anyway, it was still going okay at that point. And then, I don't know how it got brought up or why it got brought up, but Matt Hunter had type 2 diabetes, the insulin injecting fucking diabetes. Whatever one that is, the insulin injecting one. And I was give me some of that insulin. Like a fucking moron. I don't even know what insulin is now. But I'm like, give me some of that fucking insulin. And Matt Hunter's laughing his head off. Like, this guy truly is a retard. So we go into his bedroom and I shoot his fucking insulin into my belly. I don't know what it's going to do, but I'm like, fuck yeah, that was good. Give me another one. So I did 2 shots of insulin into my belly while I've been drinking for like 24 hours. I don't know what it was going to do. I was just being a dick. But not long after I did the insulin, some shit went down. I went mental. I blacked out, but I was being like an evil cunt, like saying some evil shit, and I'd pinpointed Matt Hunter. And I was just saying the fucking worst shit that could come to my fucking mind. I was just sitting there like seething. I can't remember most of this. I can remember sitting there just in pure evil mode. I remember everyone calling me like the most disrespectful cunt ever and then getting kicked out of Matt's house. I don't know what happened in between, but I ended up waking up in my bed full on shaking like I had Parkinson's. It was real bad, and I remember waking up thinking like I'm an outsider now. So I ended up drinking that day and that night. It caused more trouble somewhere. And half in my mind when I went back to Melbourne that time, I was like, I might just stay. But I fucked up so big in those 2 nights that I was like, I'm going back to Sydney. So I left Melbourne in disgrace. I got back to Sydney and obviously it filtered back to me that everyone was pissed off. Everyone in Dramana was fucking pissed off at me. And then I heard that Matt Hunter had completely ridden me off. He's like, fuck that cunt completely. So Matt Hunter stopped calling me. I didn't speak to him at all for months. A couple of times when I was drunk, I tried to call him, but I had like 2 Hunters in my phone, and I always chose the one that I thought was not going to be him. So I could pretend to myself that I tried to call him to apologize, but the phone never went through. Anyway, we didn't speak to each other for months. In the meantime, my mate Shawnee, he had wrapped his new car around a pole drink driving, and after that, I was able to convince him to move up to Sydney. So he gets up to Sydney and me and Shawnee just go on a bender. So this must have been the first or second day Shawnee's in Sydney. We're drinking at the Royale Hotel on Bondi Road in Sydney. And we're day drinking and we're just talking about and shitting on all the people back home. And then Matt Hunter comes up. I'm like, fuck, the cunt hates me. I haven't spoken to him in months. And Shawnee's like, just call him, idiot. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to call him, fuck it. And I took Matt Hunter's number out of Sean's phone. And I call Hunter and I'm fucking nervous because I don't know if he's going to pick up. I don't know what he's going to say. So the phone's going like, brr, 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 brr. And I'm half hoping he doesn't pick up because I'm a fucking pussy and I didn't want to face it. So the phone goes, brr, 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 brr. And he picks up and all I hear is, Boyle! And I'm like, Hunter! And he's like, Boyle! I'm like, Hunter! And he's just like, why didn't you call, you cunt? And I'm like, man, I thought you fucking hated me, so I didn't call. I'm fucking sorry. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. You should have called. And I'm like, yeah, man, sorry. I was being a pussy. And then it was just back to normal. Back into the flow of things. He was telling me about his new car. He got his XR6. We spoke for like an hour. He was laughing his head off. I was laughing my head off. Everything was good. There was no bad blood between us at all. So 3 days later, coincidentally, Lauren Hunter, Matt Hunter's cousin, and Erin Stelling came up to Sydney for a visit. I forget why they were in fucking Sydney, but they were in Sydney. I don't know if they were there specifically to hang out with me and Sean, but that's who they ended up hanging out with. So Shawnee was working this night, so I went out with Lauren Hunter and Erin with my other mate Horn, and it's the start of the night. We're barely like 4 drinks in. I think it's like around 6 or 7 o'clock. We're somewhere in Surrey Hills, maybe. I can't remember the exact times and locations. But it was me, Horn, Lauren Hunter, and Erin at some bar, having a drink, preparing for like a big night. I go to the toilet. I'm just about finished my piss, and I hear Lauren Hunter scream, like a blood-curdling scream. I'm like, what the fuck was that? And then I hear just fucking more screaming at the top of her lungs. So I'm like, fuck, some cunts tried to assault her. So I run out expecting to get into a fight, and Erin and Lauren are just fucking inconsolable, tears, screaming. I'm like, what the fuck happened? I'm like, Horn, what the fuck is going on? And Lauren's like, it's Maddie, it's Maddie, it's Maddie. I'm like, what? What's Maddie? And she's like, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then Erin's like, he was in a car accident. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I wasn't able to register it. Then I start making phone calls to all my friends, and they're like, have you heard? And it got confirmed by like 10 different people. And I was just in shock. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I've just got to console the girls, especially Lauren, because the Hunters are a tight-knit group. They're more like brother and sister than cousins. So she was inconsolable, so I just did what I could. I tried to kind of make her laugh. It was fucked. It was completely fucked, to be honest with you. Maddie was the first person I knew and truly cared about. I fucking loved Maddie that had passed away. And I really had no idea how to process it. No one did. We were just a bunch of 18-year-old kids, and our favorite got taken away from us. Everybody's favorite. He was everybody's best friend. So I went back down to Melbourne, went to the funeral. I went to see the car. It was just a really surreal period of time. I remember it affected me for a long time. I just couldn't compute it, but I was instantly thankful. Thank God I made that fucking phone call 3 days before. Otherwise, I would have regretted that for the rest of my life. I had a dream about Matt a week or so after he'd passed away, and we're sitting in a waiting room. And he knew he'd passed away, and I knew I could leave this waiting room. And the way to leave the waiting room was through the urinal. There was a urinal in this waiting room. So I'm having a conversation with Matt, and he's sad, but he's accepting. And then he goes, come with me. And I'm like, sorry, dude, I can't go. I'm sorry, man. And he's like, no, just stay, Boyle, stay. And I'm like, no, I got to go, man, I got to go. He's like, stay. And now I'm starting to get real nervous because I can sense that Maddie knows I'm nervous and he's going to pressure me more to stay. So I'm like, no, man, I got to go. And he sort of gives up. I give him a hug. I'm like, I love you, man, but I got to go. And he just sits back down and I jump in the urinal and I wake up. And that is my story of Matt Hunter, a guy I truly loved and miss. Anyway, that's it for tonight, and I'll see ya the fuck later.